I was getting sick and tired of being alone almost. Like the isolation is amazing to a point. Isolation is great, but then loneliness begins to kind of come in.
This is the Adventure Sports Podcast, where we talk to athletes, adventurers, and business owners from around the world of adventure sports. Whether you're climbing Mount Everest, starting a bike shop, or getting up off your couch to take your kids hiking for the first time, we want you to have the motivation and inspiration you need to chase that next adventure. The Adventure Sports Podcast is brought to you by Camp Crate, the leaders in fully planned self-guided backpacking adventures, as well as backpacking gear rental. You can check them out at campcrate.net. So there's this new backpacking food company called Peak Refuel. And honestly, I gave them a shot for my last backpacking trip. Y'all, it was literally the best backpacking food I've ever had in my life. I was so impressed by them that I wanted to reach out and get a deal for our listeners. So if you keep listening to the episode, I'll tell you how to save 20% off an order with them.
Hey friends, check out powder7.com, new sponsor for the Adventure Sports Podcast. I've worked with these guys for a couple of years, and two of my sons have bought their most recent pairs of skis there. What's cool is that while they do sell new skis, they also sell previously used demo skis. And these demo skis come with demo bindings, so no need to remount anything. And they are sold for less than half of what you would have to pay otherwise. Great deal, great website, great people. Check out powder7.com.
What's up, y'all? Hope you had a good weekend, and welcome to the show. Today we have a really good guest. I'll explain more in the intro of the show, but he uses this term a lot. His name is Richard Matthews, by the way. He uses a term in the podcast that I didn't really recognize. It was via ferrata. Maybe if you're really into climbing or mountaineering, you know exactly what that is. I didn't know, so I don't know why I didn't ask either, but I looked it up after the interview, and yeah, it's really cool. It's basically, via ferrata means, I got it pulled up here, it's Italian for iron path, and it's basically all these routes that were built in the Alps during World War II to help get soldiers over the mountains quicker. So it was like literally ladder rungs in the side of the mountains, cables so that they could have a carabiner to like attach to a harness, and you could just quickly scale mountains and safely scale mountains. It's meant to get lots of people over very difficult areas quickly. Well, after the war, a lot of people started using them for enjoyment and actually hiking up mountains, climbing up mountains. And so now there's tons of these routes all over Europe mostly. And it's really cool because it allows, relatively inexperienced people to have access to really incredible climbs and peaks that otherwise they probably would never have the chance to do. It hasn't taken off so much here in the States because ethically people don't want to be drilling holes and putting in equipment all over mountains. But there are a few places. If you're from Colorado, there's one famous one, which is in Telluride via ferrata route that kind of goes, it doesn't go up a mountain, but it goes lateral across that valley right there. But yeah, just wanted to explain what that was. If you already knew what it was, sorry for the nearly 2-minute explanation. But anyway, enjoy the episode. Today I have Richard Matthews. He's done all kinds of adventures around the world, from driven a car, circumnavigated the world on a road trip. What a freaking epic road trip. And just recently he did the Slovenian Mountain Trail, which is a thru hike in Slovenia. Welcome to the show, Richard.
Yeah, hiya. How's it all going?
Oh man, it's going good, man. It's a beautiful day here. Where are you coming from?
I'm coming from Teignmouth in the UK.
All right. Is that where you're from?
Yeah. It's not so nice here, to be honest. It's a bit rainy.
Oh, well, isn't that kind of par for the course in the UK?
Yeah, that's fair.
Man, there's nothing but sunshine. I'm in Colorado, and we get so much sunshine. So it's just another beautiful day. A little cold, but snow on the ground, but it's gorgeous.
So nothing like rubbing it in there, are you?
Well, man, I'm in this quiet little room and it's dark, so I'm not really getting to enjoy it. I'll be at my desk all day, so it doesn't really matter to me. But so, man, you just got off this Slovenia Mountain Trail, correct?
Yeah, literally, I got home, what was it now? Wednesday, 2 days ago.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Dang. Oh, man, you're probably still like just reeling from the trip.
Yeah, no, the trip was mad. But yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare getting home as well because of it being the UK and the weather in Europe as well. But yeah, still buzzing.
Wow, that's so. Yeah, before we get into that, why don't you just give us kind of like what's your background, where you're from, and how you got into doing what you do?
Yeah, so my background's an odd one, really, a jack of all trades. So I spent several years as a quantity surveyor and estimator in the roofing industry, doing that kind of thing. And at the same time, I was also a youth worker and outdoor ed instructor. So taking people into mountains, climbing, kayaking, kind of doing everything that involved being outdoors. That's where I discovered that I loved being outdoors and decided to quit estimating and drive to Mongolia. You know, as you do, casual sort of road trip through the Middle East and Central Asia and raising money for charity. Now, from the back of that, I met a guy in Moscow, as you do, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. You never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah, and we started planning a trip to circumnavigate the globe, and that was kind of that trip. And that trip was a mad thing. So much happened. And I could talk for hours about the stuff on that trip.
I can't even imagine how much you saw and how much you did. That's got to be like a lifetime within itself.
Yes, yeah, it really is. The ups, the downs, the what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah, all sorts happened on that trip. But yeah, so I kind of got here by accident, really, doing really, really ridiculous things one after another. And kind of wanted to get back to my roots of mountaineering, having been driving for the last 3 years. So at the start of the year, I was like, all right, October, I'm going to go walking somewhere. I don't know where, but somewhere. And I found out about the Slovenian Mountain Trail in the internet and was like, that's a good idea. Let's do that. So yeah, that's how I ended up in Slovenia for a month.
And it looks like it's the oldest hiking track in Europe.
Yeah, that's right. It was first transversal hiking route in Europe set up in 1953. And it's around 600 kilometers long and crosses 3 Alp regions. I think it's got 34,000 meters of ascent and descent going from Maribor at the start to Ankaran on the coast. So it's pretty baller, like pretty tough on the old knees.
Yeah. Oh man, no kidding. And I've actually never heard of it. I'm fairly familiar with, some popular trails around the world, but I didn't really know about this one. So I started researching and watched some videos. It looks absolutely stunning. I would compare it to the Colorado Trail here. It's shorter than our really big thru-hiking trails, but the scenery is just totally makes up for the short distance.
Yeah, absolutely. The scenery is nothing like I've ever seen before. It's so varied. You got the Pohor Hills where it's all forested, and being October is kind of autumnal, so all the leaves are in their brightest colors and looking stunning. But then you hit the alpine regions, and there's just, like you say, it is stunning. And being kind of in that part of Slovenia and with everything of its history, there's loads of via ferrata routes to get the army around. So every mountain in the Kanik Alps, anyway, has via ferrata on it. So it's just this whole extra dynamic of being able to go up these really steep and sharp ridges and come round like mountain faces. Really cool scenery and really interesting way to see the mountains.
Yeah. Is it a popular trail for hikers in Europe?
Not really, no. I mean, I didn't even know about it until I started researching it. Like, you've got there's lots of European long distance trails, but the Slovenian one wasn't that known about at all. I mean, when I was out on the trail, loads of people were asking me, how did you find about this? What are you doing here? I mean, it was out of season, but it was also the fact that many people in sort of the UK don't know about it, along with the rest of Western Europe. And we see Slovenia here as this, well, it's really far away. Like, what is this place?
So, yeah, was that a good time of year, or was it pretty cold? Because it's kind of chilly here, around end of October. And so it'd be tough to do any through hiking.
It was tough, and I got very lucky, and for several reasons, really. One being the fact that I had more or less 20 days of sun, which was amazing. And then I was asking a few mountain hut owners, and they were explaining to me that on, I think it was like the 20th of October, something like that, that time last year, they had 4.5 meters of snow.
Oh my gosh. 4.5 meters. Yeah, you would not have been able to do a whole lot unless you had some big snowshoes.
I mean, I was carrying winter gear as well. I didn't use any of it, luckily. And I was probably one of the last people to do Triglav, which is the highest mountain in Slovenia, in summer conditions, because it got hit by this massive storm. The whole region, Venice got flooded. It was all over the news, even here in the UK. And the Slovenian government actually put a thing out to say, nobody go outside. Like, it's too dangerous. And there's me wanting to go out in the mountains.
Yeah, why did you pick this time of year?
Just simply because I don't know, really. It was just October. It seemed like a good year. I've got a few other sort of projects and things going on as well. And October was kind of the only time I had. So it was October or nothing.
So like I said before, Peak Refuel is a new company making freeze-dried food. And it's literally the best freeze-dried meals I've ever had. You can use it for backpacking, camping, hunting, whatever you want to use it for. And these folks are the real deal. They spent over 2 years researching the market and creating the perfect recipes, and it is just absolutely awesome. I used the meals on my last guided trip, and the people on the trip could not even believe that it was freeze-dried food. Literally, you put a cup of water in, it's like a cup or cup and a half. It's not very much water, and it tastes like it came from a restaurant. That's how good it is. If you're interested in ordering some yourself, you can get 20% off by going to peakrefuel.com and use ASP20 at checkout. I encourage you, go get some, try it for yourself. It's amazing. The Adventure Sports Podcast is also brought to you by Powder 7 Ski Shop. Powder 7 is Colorado's premier homegrown and family-owned ski shop. Online at powder7.com, they offer a huge selection of new and used ski gear, plus full tech and boot fitting services at their shop in Golden. With personalized customer service, they set up skiers from all over the world with perfect gear. From brands like Kesley, Rosignol, Black Crows, and Head, Powder 7 is all skiing all the time. So check out powder7.com to learn more. Now, back to the episode. Through hiking here in the States is, I don't know if you call it that there, but, just long distance hiking is a huge deal. We have 3 big trails, which are the Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest Trail, and the Continental Divide. Have you long distance hiked before any of this, or was this a first time for you?
Yeah, this was a first time, mainly because we don't really have many long distance hikes. Like, for us, a long distance hike is like 100 miles, right, 120 miles.
Yeah.
Simply because of the geography of the land more than anything else. And there's the European long distance trails, which is, some of them is like 6,000 kilometers. And then they go from like the most northern point in Europe to like southern Spain and things like that. But I haven't done anything like this. The longest sort of through hike I had done was probably 4 days.
Wow.
So,
wow. You're not really a stranger to adventure, so that helps.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So do you have any aspirations to do any more after this experience?
Yeah, definitely. I've been looking at the Appalachian Trail for a little while now, and I might get out there and do it, but I don't know. I don't know. It's always a ball ache for me to come to America simply because of the other trips I've done and been to countries such as Iran. But getting out there, because some of the scenery in America is absolutely stunning. I want to get back up to Yosemite as well, because there's like so many nice big trails out there.
Have you been to Yosemite?
Yeah, so on the circumnavigation trip, we went down the west coast of the states and visited Sequoia National Park, Yosemite, and kind of went out to Vancouver Island. It was really interesting, really, really different scenery. It was quite stunning.
It's an awesome place, man. From the deserts to it's just so varied out in the American West. So you see a lot of very stark differences pretty quickly. Because right across the mountains from Yosemite is one of the hottest places in the world, Death Valley. It looks like the surface of Mars. It's red and gray and muted colors, and it's literally just on the other side, and it's below sea level. But it's has gigantic mountains surrounding it, and it is an absolutely bizarre anomaly on the landscape. So yeah, man, if you want to come over here and do that, I would suggest you. Our East Coast listeners might get pretty mad, but the Pacific Crest Trail is probably the most stunning I've ever seen, and that goes straight through Yosemite, through the backcountry.
Oh, man, that is tempting.
The Appalachian Trail, man, the Appalachian Trail is awesome. Don't get me wrong. I've done a lot of it. But it's popular because so many people live there, very close to it. Get this, man. 2/3 of America, so that's like 200 million people, live within half a day's drive of some point on the Appalachian Trail.
Man, that is wild.
So that's one reason so many people get out there, and it's so popular, because literally almost 2 out of 3 people in the whole country can drive there in half a day. So it's really close. However, if you want a crazy, wild, probably similar to what you just did, just longer, the Continental Divide Trail is, there's less than, I think, 100 people a year that hike that from one end of the country to the other. But all these trails, man, are, 4,000 kilometers, so they're pretty long.
Limerick.
Yeah, they take like 6 months to do, but there's people that try to do a few of them a year. Some people have tried to do all 3 in a year. So some people are crazy, man.
Yeah, some people really are. I think that the quickest someone's done the Slovenian Mountain Trail is something like 7 days.
Oh
which
my
is
gosh.
It's just insanity. Like, it took me 4 hours to go up one of the faces that was Via Ferrata. Like, how do they do it in 7 days?
I'm looking right now. That is a lot of traveling. Let me look it up. That's 85 kilometers a day.
Yeah.
That is crazy. How did that? They just must be running with very little stuff on their back.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a trail runner or something like that.
Yeah. They probably had some help, some support.
Yeah. To be fair, on the last day of the trip, I managed to clock in 46 kilometers, but then that was mostly downhill. But to be fair, I was also carrying 25 kilos. So
Right. Well, what's cool about the Slovenia Mountain Trail is it starts in the mountains, but then it goes to sea level. It goes to the ocean, correct?
Yeah, it does. It goes down to I think it's the Adriatic. And it's really interesting because all the scenery changes. So it starts in forests and ends in forests, but the start of it is this very kind of landlocked, kind of, well, not dry or arid, but you feel like you're in the proper forest. Whereas towards the end, there's this really Mediterranean feel. There's sort of vineyards and olives growing. And as you get lower down, it gets really hot as well. So it's just such a difference in everything that's going on across the entire route, which I imagine is similar across some of the other routes around the world. But I think the thing that surprised me the most on this trail was how much the Slovenians were out. The trail is really well marked. For the most part, you don't even need a map because they call them K-lifts. It's a red circle with a white circle in the middle of it with the number 1. There's one on nearly every tree at some points. It's so well marked.
That really helps. So you were saying locals got out there and experienced the trail themselves.
Yeah, locals have this Slovenians have this really deep connection with the outdoors. In fact, there's this thing in Slovenia where you're not actually a Slovenian unless you've climbed Triglav at least once in your life. Many Slovenians do it more than once. So
tell us about that. What is that?
So Triglav is the highest mountain in Slovenia. And if you look at their flag, it has, it's kind of red, white and blue. But then in the top corner, there's the 3 stars. And then there's this jagged mountains. And that is Triglav and the Julian Alps. And it's really interesting because the Slovenians, they do get out there. Walk through the week, there wouldn't be that very many people around. You get to the weekend and the mountains are just full of people, absolutely full. And I mean, I left this one campsite at 7 a.m. one morning, got to this saddle on a ridge at 8 a.m. and then a trail runner came down the mountain, and it was still a 4-hour trek to the top and 4 hours from any other direction. So he must have been up at 4 a.m. Yeah, they love it. They're always out in the mountains. They are, honestly, I can't really describe it because they just have this such deep connection. And I was in a hostel at one point and we drove to Italy. And on the Slovenian side, there was trees lining all the roads. And this was in the middle of a city. And as soon as you hit the Italian border, there was no nature at all. I mean, over half of Slovenia is trees. It's just such an incredible country.
I never hear that much about it. Yeah, seems to be a huge climbing and outdoor culture there. And Triglav does not look like the easiest mountain to climb. It looks like quite a challenge.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's via ferrato, whatever way you come to it. And it's not super hard, but it's daunting, let's say. You walk along a ridge that's a foot wide with a cable, but it's a sort of 3-4 on one side, maybe 1,000-meter drop on the other. It's pretty tough.
So what's something on that trip that's really memorable to you? Maybe a good day or a bad day or an experience?
Yeah, so there's obviously quite a few. So I think one of the best days was discovering something called Zimska Soba. Now, being October, it's low season. So a lot of the huts started to shut the further into October I went. And I came across one particular hut and I'd done about 30K. I was kind of towards the start. It's going great. I get to this hut thinking, I'm going to have to camp tonight and it's raining. This isn't fun. And at the start in Maribor, I had met this Slovenian and she'd give me her number saying, any problems with translations, you can send to me, no worries. I found this room called a Zimska Soba. Asked her what it meant. It turned out it meant winter room. So this basically just an open room, no lock on it, that you can use for free and just use common sense, not damage anything and leave everything there. But it had a mattress in, and that was kind of it. It was just some way to get out of the weather when it was pretty bad. And that's where I stayed for quite a lot of the time. I just kept staying in huts with these winter rooms. Not every hut had one, and that was kind of made it more interesting. And then some of them were shut and some of them were kind of in really bad state where some people had destroyed them or, ransacked the place. But they were amazing. And getting to this one hut was just such an incredible moment for me, to be out of the rain and then discover that I now have a place where I can stay throughout the rest of the trip, because there's huts all over Slovenia. It was just really upbringing.
That was something to look forward to then, huh?
Yes. Yeah. Something to look forward to, certainly.
Knowing that you'd have some decent shelter from any possible storms. So what's something that went wrong on the trip?
In terms of something that went wrong, I mean, I lost a few bits and pieces here and there. In terms of going wrong, I wouldn't say anything did go wrong. There were certainly points of me questioning myself and wondering why on earth I was doing it. Yeah, I don't think anything went wrong as such. I had to make amendments. I ran out of water. I suppose that was something that went wrong.
Yeah. So how'd you get more? You just had to keep going, or were you just in a dry area?
Yeah. Up in the high Alps, the water sources are all from the huts, because it's all limestone. So there isn't any water. It all just runs off straight away. So in order to get water, you get it from the huts. And with them being closed, I couldn't get water. Now, some of the huts are on rainwater and some of them are like straight in the system. And I came across one that was on the system. I knew it was, but it was shut and they had no outdoor tap, because quite a lot of them do have outdoor taps. So I had to then change the route and not go and do the high mountains, and had to actually descend over 1,000 meters to then get water, to then climb back up another 1,000 meters to keep on going, which was a pain, to say the least.
Oh my gosh. Even with things not going too wrong, and that running out of water being probably one of the worst things that happen, you still had times that you questioned why you were out there. What was that like?
It was difficult. Now, all the other trips that I've done in my life, I've always had other people around. There's always been someone else, no matter who they are, they're a friend or a stranger.
Yeah.
This was the first solo trip I'd ever done. I mean, it was a good thing. I wanted to do a solo trip because to compare the both, to see how the mind works in a situation on your own compared to being with others. And it is very difficult. I mean, I was going through some of the footage and I found a clip of me basically explaining that I knew I could do it. There's no stopping, I could easily do it without a problem, but I just didn't want to. And this was around halfway. I just didn't want to do it anymore. I was getting sick and tired of being alone almost. Like the isolation is amazing to a point. Isolation is great, but then loneliness begins to kind of come in. And that day in particular was just horrible. I did no distance. I sat around a lot. I just didn't want to do anything. I didn't enjoy the mountains anymore. And it was just a mental game. And I'm sure everybody has the mental games, but like on a trip like this, they're just exacerbated.
So how did that feeling pass?
How did it pass? I was actually incredibly coincidental. I did a couple of kilometers, and I should say at this point I'd been speaking to other people along the way, but I hadn't run across anybody who spoke English fluently. I get to the top of this mountain called Stol, which is on the Austrian border, having climbed up a partially snow-covered scree slope. And at the top, there's this group. They've got cameras. I honestly thought it was like a local university. It turned out they were true travelers from a hostel in Bled. And there was 2 Canadians. There was a local Slovenian and a few other people. I think there was a Moroccan and an Austrian there as well. And I just happened to run into them. Very coincidentally, because it was being that day, being the kind of worst day that I was having And I ended up going back to a hostel with them, not because I needed the rest, but more because I wanted to just have a chat and kind of get back to being around other people for a bit.
Well, there's a lesson there, man. You know, you might be feeling a certain way at a certain point along your adventure, but you've got to know that if you keep moving, eventually you get what you need. Either you see people that help encourage you, or that those feelings pass. But that can be very daunting, and that can be hard to keep in mind, especially when you're alone, especially the first time being alone on a trip. I totally understand. My first few trips were with friends, and the first trip I was alone was a huge challenge. And even still, if I do something alone, there's a much better chance of me not completing the journey versus when I have friends around me that can kind of, pick up the slack when I'm not feeling my best. And so it seems like that's what you were going through.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you say, like it is, you learn a lot as well, I feel, from being alone compared to being with others.
So what do you like better, going out by yourself or with others?
With others, I think is where I'm going. But
yeah, that's what you'd rather do. I don't blame you one bit. So yeah, what was the? Have you ever had those feelings before with other trips, with much larger trips?
Yes, although they've been kind of come around for a different reason. So on the other trips, the money became a massive problem, and I got ill quite a bit. I starved for 3 weeks, which is a horrendous thing to go through. But with other people.
Oh man! So what happened?
It was a case of stupidity and, I guess in a way, pride. At that point, which was a few years ago, and not wanting to be helped out financially by others. So yeah, I paid the ultimate price. Like, laugh about it now, but at the time it wasn't so fun. I had a kilo of rice and like 3 eggs for like 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh. And that was simply because you didn't have money.
That was because I didn't have money and I didn't ask for help.
Interesting. So why didn't you want to ask for help? It was just a principle of,
I wanted to travel, but I want to travel off my own means. I want to be able to support myself through this. I don't want to have to not rely on other people, but I think from my opinion back then it was begrudging them, be kind of like being almost using their funds when they're traveling as well.
Interesting. And so, yeah, I'd say most of my trips I self-supported. Would you accept money if anyone were to just give it to you on that trip, like on the actual journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it was a case of if people are willing to help and it's not a problem to them, then no worries. But in terms of actually giving money, yes, I would accept it, but it wasn't something I would do willingly. It was kind of an internal battle to accept it.
By now you certainly know who Bent Gate is. That's for a great reason. Bent Gate Mountaineering has been sponsoring the Adventure Sports Podcast almost from the beginning, and we really appreciate that. They've made it possible for all the great shows to continue coming your way. We want to say thanks by reminding you to go to them for your backcountry gear. If you live in Colorado, then just stop by their store in Golden. If not, go to bentgate.com. They have what you need, from the latest ultralight gear to the tried and true classics for climbing, hiking, and camping, like Arc'teryx, Hilleberg, Nemo, Western Mountaineering, and many more. Need advice? They have you covered there too. Their staff are passionate adventurers who can offer help from their own experiences. Bent Gate also hosts lots of events and speakers. Check out their website to see the schedule and to see all of their products. Help take care of the Adventure Sports Podcast by getting your gear from Bent Gate Mountaineering.
This is Colorado nature photographer John Fielder with a great idea for gifting our state this season. Don't get mad at me. My latest Colorado book actually takes the color out of colorful Colorado. Carpets of purple columbine, Forests of yellow aspens and buff-colored herds of elk are rendered in black, white, and gray. You'll be mesmerized by the edges, shapes, and textures of our most beautiful of states. You'll love it. Visit johnfielder.com to see my new book, Colorado Black on White. That's johnfielder.com.
Yeah, well, yeah, man, because some of the best stories come from what we call here trail magic. I don't know what you call it, but it's almost like the concept of when you're in need of something, someone just kind of shows up along the trail with that need. It's almost miraculous how it happens, but serendipitous, I guess. But it creates some of the best stories of all my trips is when I'm really in need of something, and it seems like by the end of that day, someone has just randomly come across me and offered to meet that need out of nowhere. I don't know if you guys have a similar term for it, or you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I've had it quite a few times myself. We don't really have a word for it, although I do like trail magic. It's pretty awesome.
If you go on the AT, the Appalachian Trail, you're going to hear that a lot. Lots of trail magic, yes.
Look out for it. I call it coincidence, and it happened at least twice. Is that what happened earlier with me meeting up those other guys on the trail, and then I also met another guy in a hostel who happened to be living at the end of the trip as well. So I stayed with him for quite a few times, for a few nights.
I'd love to hear more about that circumnavigation. How long did that trip take you?
So it was a year, just under a year.
Wow.
We started. Yeah, it was a big trip. And we actually started here in Teignmouth and drove out through Europe, ended up going to Russia, and we went through sort of all of Eastern Europe. So we ended up down in Albania, Romania, Bulgaria. And then from Russia, we hit the Stans. So we did Uzbekistan. Where else did we go? Kyrgyzstan. And then all the way out to Vladivostok on the Pacific Ocean before shipping back to Vancouver. Now, just quickly on shipping, never ship anything anywhere. It is the biggest ball ache and the most annoying thing.
So part of my job is I'm in charge of shipping backpacking gear. It is the biggest cause of stress in my life, shipping.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what you're talking about. But continue. I want to hear more.
Well, yeah, we were shipping with a guy called Yuri, two British vehicles and a British motorcycle. Went into Vancouver, and then we all kind of split up. And from there, we spent about a month in Vancouver, then went down the West Coast, exploring California and Washington and Oregon, before heading to Mexico for Christmas, and then heading further south, doing Belize, Guatemala, and then ended up in San Pedro Sula in Honduras, which is the ex-murder capital of the world.
Yeah, crazy place.
It's a really awesome place, and I recommend people should go, to be honest.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. So you didn't get murdered. That's good. But there is a reputation here of it being pretty dangerous.
It's pretty dangerous if you're a local, is what we've discovered. We were there for about a month. So at this point, we all started getting a little short of money. So we were kind of going around to hostels and basically bartering with them, being like, look, we'll give you a document or a film or a showcase of the hostel in exchange for free accommodation. Because we had with us a photojournalist from Portugal, and he was obviously very good with cameras, and I'm okay, and another guy was okay as well, and then we had another guy who could edit. So we were just going from hostel to hostel and essentially doing videos for them. No, we ended up in San Pedro Sula because someone asked us to come there and do one of the whole city, which was kind of fun. But the other reason we were there is Costa Rica banned right-hand drive vehicles. And having British vehicles, this was a huge problem because to ship to South America is all done from Panama because it's the shortest distance. So we're now in a situation where we had to find someone to ship from San Pedro Sula to Colombia, which we managed to do, and it was fine. It would take about a week. So we flew to Colombia for a week, and we were there stuck in Cartagena for about 3 weeks waiting for the cars, as there was all sorts of issues. Colombia apparently has some of the strictest custom laws in the world. That was also at the same time that I was going through this whole not eating and starvation period, which was great. From there we did...
Yeah, sounds awesome.
From there we did Ecuador, Peru, hit about 4,000 meters, stayed at 4,000 meters for a bit, and then Bolivia, down into the salt flats, and then straight across Argentina. And we tried to stay out of Argentina because, once again, being British and having British vehicles wasn't the best of things. There were a few incidents involving the police and people asking us where we were from, which is interesting. It's great. You go to every town and there's a giant, not like a billboard size, but like a big sign going along the lines of the Falklands are Argentinian.
Yeah, so they let you know what they think right when you get in town.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong, Argentinians are amazing. It was just the police that we had issues with. And that was it, really.
So what place surprised you on that trip as far as, wow, this is better than I thought it would be?
Japan was kind of, what on earth is going on here?
Oh yeah? What do you mean?
So while the cars were shipping across the Pacific, obviously the Pacific is massive. So the cheapest way to get to Vancouver was a flight from South Korea. Now we could fly from Vladivostok to South Korea, or we could go to Japan. It turned out to be cheaper to go to Japan, so we'd all then split up and hitchhiked from Tokyo to Seoul. And Japan is just, it's so safe. Like, the culture is just so dramatically different from everywhere else.
And what do you mean? Just people behave a lot differently societally?
Yeah. Like, there's this really strange sort of, I say strange coming as an outsider, like people, businessmen, literally asleep in what we said, gutter, like just on the pavement. And it's just the norm. Like, everyone's like, okay, that's fine. Whereas we were looking at it.
What were they doing?
They're just working too hard. Working so hard. Like, they have this very work ethic culture there.
And so, like, collapsing or just to getting a quick nap in between shifts or something. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I don't know which, to be honest.
Okay.
We would just come across people and be like, what?
That's too much work.
Yes. Yeah, it really is.
Interesting. So what's a place that you were ready to kind of get through? Maybe it was taking too long or just wasn't as exciting as you hoped it to be.
Actually, it was America. It was the US that I wanted to get through.
Oh, man. So why is that? I mean, be open. I'm just curious.
It was very interesting having to... there's just so many things. So the first thing is we crossed the border, and I like to point out the cars that we're driving are ridiculous. I mean, my car has a shopping trolley or a shopping cart on the roof of it, and it has like a flag and all sorts to stick it up.
Yeah,
they look pretty mad. So we got pulled over by the police quite a lot, and certainly not used to how American police deal with situations. So that was always interesting.
Well, what's different about it? Because that's, obviously, not obviously, you might not know this, but it's a huge point of contention here right now is how police deal with situations.
It is the whole kind of, hands on the steering wheel. You got to keep them where you can see them. Whereas I'm used to just having a chat with people, like the police. You don't even worry about anything. Like it's just a chat. Like it's just
so
the
it's
normal
stressful
to have a conversation. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I am not someone that is, I don't break the law a whole lot, or, I don't necessarily have to. I still get nervous when I see police, and it's just a reaction because that you have to, it's a very serious interaction most of the time. And that they're doing their job, but it is stressful. And so if you're from another country in a vehicle that isn't familiar with a shopping cart tied on top of your car, I can imagine it's pretty stressful for you.
Yeah.
And so is that what made you want to kind of get through the States?
Well, not partly. I mean, it wasn't great. The biggest kind of thing was everything else that happened. Like, because they're British cars, getting insurance for them was a nightmare. It took 20 of us 2 weeks of us phoning around in Canada to try and figure it out.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, like every other country was fine. We just turned up at the border, like, yeah, go speak to that guy. He'll sort you out.
Wow. Yeah, that would be a lot more helpful.
Yeah. And then there was other issues as well. One of the other vehicles broke down, so I ended up spending 5 days in Vegas just basically fixing a car. We rebuilt the entire rear end of it.
Oh, what did you think about Las Vegas?
If I'm honest, I didn't think it was too great.
Man, I'm the same way. Vegas is, to me, very overrated.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. It's a strange place. It really is.
It's a strange place for Americans, too. It's out in the middle of the desert. It's very isolated. It's a big city, but it's kind of out there alone. And you almost look at it and think, this shouldn't be here for some reason. I feel that this is just a giant facade, and it should not be here.
Yeah.
You want to hear something crazy?
Go on.
That's where I got married. So it's really easy to get married there, and my wife and I we were dating at the time, and I lived and worked in Yosemite for about 6 months, and she came out there to live with me, and we moved to Colorado right when she got there. So we drove through Yosemite, through Death Valley, and we made a little pit stop in Las Vegas to get married, and then continued on through Utah. Which Utah, did you go through Utah at all?
No, I didn't. I went through Arizona.
And that's an awesome place. I would say Utah is one of the most underrated areas of America. It is probably my favorite state to visit. Colorado's great, and I love California as well. And Utah, I feel like, is up there with the best of the most incredible scenery you could ever imagine. Just this very, very strange swirl of very, alpine mountains, like little sections of the Alps mixed in with these just unbelievable red rock formations. It is a stunning place. Anyway, you'll have to come back one day.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Unfortunately, the closest airport and probably the cheapest is Vegas, so you might have to see Vegas one more time.
I'm sure I can just drive across. I mean, I'm actually looking at doing a road trip and bringing the Micra back to the US and driving it around for a couple of months.
Oh man, well if you do, please let us know, because we're in a great place here in Denver. Love to say hello and give you some pointers on where to go and where to avoid.
That would be fantastic, man.
So I was going to ask, so what's next for you? What do you have on the radar?
I got a couple things, really. I've started a few projects here in the UK. One's called Adventure Stories, which is essentially a community-based speaking project for people to get involved with and share their story whatever that happens to be, big, small, walking down the shops. Like, we want to know about it. Like, everyone's got a story to tell.
Interesting. Is that like an event that you host, and it's a live event, or is that like an online community?
No, it's a live event, and it's that I host here in Exeter. Well, Exeter's a big city near me. I say big by my standards. There's 100,000 people there.
That's big to me. I'm from a town of 3,000, so.
Oh well, yeah, but it's looking to spread. I got people trying to host it for me around the country. So yeah, we're trying to get lots of people and get them outdoors. Really, and that's kind of the whole point of the project. That's
wonderful. So, have you had any events yet?
Yeah, we've had 2 so far. Obviously, it's just slow start. We've had about 50 people in total come along, and
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Got our next event is on Tuesday, the 20th of November, and then there's sort of one a month, but that's in Exeter, and then go from there and see what happens. It's looking to be spread to around 5 cities in January, I reckon. It's picking up a lot of pace.
Fantastic. And this is your endeavor. You started this?
Yes, yeah, I did, yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
You never know. It might end up coming stateside, if it would work there.
Oh well, man, we're going to start hosting some live episodes here soon, and there are tons and tons of outdoor talks and adventure talks here. So I think it would definitely work. So yeah, let us know if there's any way the Adventure Sports Podcast could help. Man, we have connections with places that we could host the events. So please, let's do it.
Yeah, do it, man. Collaboration for the win.
All right. Yes. So what else? Do you have any other personal adventures coming up?
Yeah, well, not so many personal adventures. I've got a trip where we're driving down to the Sahara Desert and taking on the 1990s Dakar route. And we don't know what vehicle we're going to take. We're kind of throwing it up in the air at the minute. But it's an organized trip with a group called Driven to Extremes. And it's basically taking a load of veterans with PTSD and using adventure and overlanding to kind of help get them through, really. So that's happening in March. So that's going to be a pretty wild trip. And then, yeah, I think there's so many other things in the line. Like, someone asked me to go scootering on a little, like, push scooter Land's End to John O'Groats, which is kind of our big trail here. Yeah, I'm just trying to think what else is going on. Too much. I want to get back out to Slovenia and do some more of the high Alps again.
Yeah, I wish you the best on all that. Well, Richard, thank you for being on the show, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And congratulations on your recent victorious adventure.
Cheers, man.
All right, have a good one, Richard. See ya.
Cheers, bye.
Bye. Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you know somebody that would make a good guest on the show, or if you have a pretty cool story about the outdoors or adventure sports that you want to tell us, please call us and leave a voicemail at 812-MAIL-POD. That is 812-624-5763. You can also send us an email at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. Again, it is always helpful to leave us a review on iTunes. And if you'd like to be a supporter of the show, you can give $5 a month at patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. And links for all that stuff is also in the show notes. So thanks again for listening. And y'all get out there and do something so you can be on the show one day. All right, later. Don't forget, if you want to save 20% off the best backpacking food you're ever going to eat, go to peakrefuel.com and use ASP20 at checkout.